All right, Ryan, thanks for joining me this morning. Can we start off, state your pay grade and your branch of service?
E4 and Marine Corps.
Okay, thank you. So which category of the military would you say that fell under? Combat arms, combat support, or combat service support?
You mean like my job in the Marine Corps? What does it fall under?
Yeah, so would you be combat arms? Would you be kind of
No. I would say
or logistic?
combat service support. I was a computer network technician, so I did computer networking.
Okay, thank you. So when you went to work, did you have a general idea of what you were going to be doing that day prior to showing up?
Yes, we had actually we had a weekly. We had two dry erase boards in the office that were one had the weekly plan, and then one was a daily plan that had my name and each of my Marines and what needed to be done on a daily basis. But also we had a weekly goal that we had to reach as well. So we had a daily planner and a weekly planner.
Okay. Would you say that your workload was stressful?
At times, I mean, we were part of a MAG, which is a Marine Air Group 2-4, and anytime any of them would go on a training deployment or an actual deployment, we would help kind of get them ready to go. Or if we ourselves were getting ready to go, we'd have to pack up everything and do inventories. So it just depended, day to day. Some days it seemed like you didn't have anything to do and you're just doing like kind of shop maintenance, sweeping the floors and all that. But other days you had a lot of stuff to do. So it just kind of depended.
Okay. In your field of work, would you say that it was hard to stay positive when things weren't really going very well?
I think probably any field of work is hard. It's hard to stay positive when things don't go well. But yeah, I mean, there's days where you get down on yourself and you mess up on something and someone lights a fire under you and you kind of get down on yourself. But for the most part, no, I think it was a rewarding job. I always enjoyed it, but for the most part, no. I mean, you get your off days every now and then, but I enjoyed it.
Okay. Would you say that those stresses were in your control to change, or were they like an outside force acted on you?
A lot of the times when I was stressed, it was generally more of an outside force because it was usually from a higher up. They would either put a big task on you and they'd expect you to get done. And the biggest stress is wondering what kind of trouble you're going to get in if you don't get it done or if you don't get it done to their standard. You never know if someone's going to, lose it on you, and start screaming and yelling at you in front of your peers, which is always embarrassing. But it happens fairly often in the Marine Corps. But yeah, I'd say most of the time it was an outside stress because, doing your job, you already know how to do it. It's just, you don't know if the way you do it is going to mesh with how they want it done. So it was mainly an outside stressor out of my control.
So when you weren't physically at work in the work environment, what did you find yourself doing?
Oh man, lots of stuff. I was in Hawaii, so I had the beach. So I'd go to the beach. I have my guitars. I play music. Really, just honestly, I like to stay as far away from the base as possible. So I'd go all the way across the island to the North Shore of Hawaii and hang out with some friends over there. I had a Jeep and I'd take it off road, and it was I had a lot of ways to de-stress outside of work. So that's what kept it, kept me sane, so to speak.
Okay, yeah, that sounds awesome, actually. So in your own words, how would you define depression?
Depression, I would say, it's a mental state of I guess uncurable sadness. It's something I would say that you don't really know what triggers it. Sometimes you don't really know what causes it, but you just get really sad and you lose interest in things, and it seems like there's no way to really cheer yourself back up, and you don't know how to get out. It's like a funk and you don't know how to get out of it.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. If I told you that depression could be simply as just losing interest in an activity that you once really liked, with that definition and your own interpretation, would you ever say that you've experienced depression while in the military?
Yes.
Yeah. Without going into great detail, could you explain what may have caused that?
I would say a lot of the time, in the military, you're away from your family. Even someone like myself, I've never been super close to my family, but I think being so far away from my family, it's kind of that, you don't know what you have until it's gone type mindset. I always had my family around before I joined the Marine Corps, and then you get shipped away and you don't really have any support system. So really, I would say most of the times that I experienced depression was when I would move to a new unit, or when I would go to a new training facility and you don't really know anyone and you're just kind of by yourself. It's like, yeah, I know that these guys would, support me and help me if I asked them to, but you don't know anyone. You don't have a personal connection with anyone yet. So you just kind of feel very alone and isolated, and you don't have any social interaction. And I think, humans are social people naturally, whether or not they want to believe it. Everyone needs some sort of a support system. So when you don't have that, it's a real struggle.
Yeah, I agree with you. So, thank you for sharing with that. So, how often would you find yourself thinking about work tasks or problems when you were off duty?
Uh, that was during a weekday, like on a Monday night or a Tuesday night, all the time. I'd go to dinner after work, and I'd be thinking about, what do I have to get done tomorrow? How am I going to get this done? And especially, those days where, you have a lot of stuff to get done the next day. You don't just stress about what you have to do, but the time that you have to do it in, because a lot of times they give you, limits, like, hey, you got to get this done by noon. You got to get this done by close of business. So I'd say, on a weekday, I'd be thinking about my, what I had to get done, probably at least a full hour in total out of the day. Cause you're just sitting there and you think about it here and there. And sometimes I'd write stuff down and like, oh, if I do this first, and I try to plan it out, and then you go to work the next day and either it works or it doesn't. So yeah, it takes up a good amount of off duty time during the week. On the weekends, again, it's when I decompress, and unless I have something big to do on Monday, and then, it'll take up some of my time over the weekends. But for the most part, during the weekdays, it's a good chunk of my time.
Awesome. So, what are some high points in the military life that kind of kept you from wanting to separate from the service earlier?
Oh man. Your friends, honestly, it's the camaraderie. You go to work, and especially like as a corporal, that these guys are your junior Marines, and they all kind of look up to you for guidance, and they'll ask you. You get to know them on a personal level and on a professional level, and then you go home. I mean, I was in the barracks. I lived right next door to two of my junior Marines, and I mean, I'd go over there on the weekends, and we'd hang out and talk, and um, they literally become like an extension of your family from back home. Actually, I'd consider myself closer to some of the guys that I met in the Marine Corps than I do my own blood brother. So, that's what made it difficult for me when it came time to choose whether or not I wanted to get out. I think that was the main thing that kind of pulled me towards staying in. Was the camaraderie, because I knew that I wouldn't find that outside of the military. It's pretty much impossible to find.
Yeah. So for those who may be experiencing similar things that you've already gone through, what would be something that you would like to share with them now?
I'd say, especially, people that are in the military, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, there's times where you're like, oh man, I hate the military. I wish I was out and I can't wait to get out. And then there's days where you're like, I don't know if I'm going to get out, but at the end of the day, there's going to come a day where you have to choose whether or not you want to sign that contract. And at the end, and you need to figure out what's best for you. Don't take into account, what your friends want to do. Like your friend may say, oh, I want to stay in and I want to go to, I want to go get stationed in Pendleton, or I'm going to move over to Japan. Don't take that into account. Take into account your own dreams and what you want to do. And also don't listen to your higher ups either, because, a lot of them pushed me towards staying in just because they would say things like, oh, there's nothing outside of the military. You're not going to be able to find a job. It's difficult to find a job when you get out and you're going to struggle. And they'll put all these thoughts in your head because retention is sometimes an issue for the military. So, I mean, it's their job to an extent to try to convince people to stay in, but a lot of times they don't do it in a very positive way. So you need to just think about yourself and what you think is best for you. And if you have dreams outside of the military, chase them, because that's why I got out. I got out because I had other things I wanted to try, and I had no regrets when I did make my decision to get out of the Marine Corps. So just, keep your head up and stay positive. And when it comes time to choose, make the decision for yourself.
All right, Ryan. Thank you so much for joining me tonight.
You're very welcome.